So why exactly did President Trump send so many senior American officials to Israel, right here to Israel, only 1 week after his historic, exciting, and super consequential visit? Was it to make things better, to fix things, or is there trouble? Why did he send Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner? Why did he send Vice President J.D. Vance? And then, why, on top of all that, did he send the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, even as J.D. Vance's plane was just taken off? This is Rubio's 4th visit to Israel this year. Is there trouble in River City? Or is Trump simply eager to work out all the details of his peace process, keep it moving, and prevent the ceasefire from blowing up? The truth is both. There is trouble here in Jerusalem. Some crazy things have happened in the last week. There is the risk of the whole thing blowing up. But Trump is also trying to make sure that all the specific logistical details get coordinated to keep things moving in the right direction. Let me be clear. While all these American high-level muckety-mucks were here in Jerusalem, one of the lunatics in the Netanyahu government, and I say this advisedly, and I'll explain who he is in a little bit. One of the lunatics in the Netanyahu government that's part of his coalition, a far right-wing minister, made public comments that might very well have derailed peace and normalization with the Saudis as long as Netanyahu and his government are in power. That was bad. But if that weren't bad enough, a Knesset committee voted to annex Judea and Samaria, to apply Israeli sovereignty over what the world calls the West Bank on the very day that the vice president was in Jerusalem. A move that sent shockwaves through Washington and through moderate Arab capitals and provoked the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, to call this a stupid political stunt that he was personally insulted by. And that's not all. Then there were media leaks, apparently out of the Trump White House, or maybe the State Department, maybe the Pentagon, various officials in the U.S. saying that Turkey, under Recep Erdogan, the would-be sultan of Turkey, that Turkey is about to send troops into Gaza, and this enraged Netanyahu. Whoa. Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg in Jerusalem with a YouTube exclusive for the Rosenberg Report. So much happening. We're going to break it down. What were the takeaways from the Vance and Rubio visits? Obviously, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff as well. And a lot of it's positive. So let me start with this question of J.D. Vance being here. This is a big deal. Okay, we're going to get to the craziness in a moment that he had to deal with, the Israeli craziness. But I want to start with the fact that it's a big deal that the vice president was here, because there's many things about J.D. Vance's record that are very positive about Israel, but there are some questions about the depth of J.D. Vance's commitment to Israel. And part of that is because he has a very close friendship with Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson has been the most hostile right-winger to attack and criticize and berate Israel of anybody on the right. And Vance and Tucker Carlson are very close, and Vance hasn't called out Tucker for any of it. Okay, Tucker Carlson's statements are increasingly bordering on or even moving into the realm of anti-Semitism. That's a jump ball, but it's been super hostile to Israel and super hostile to Jews. So however you want to characterize what Tucker Carlson's saying, J.D. Vance, his very close friend and political ally, isn't calling Tucker out on it. So that's raising some concerns. Tucker Carlson's son, I'm told, works for Vice President Vance. So that's interesting. Is it determinative of something? No, but it's just worth noting. Donald Trump's bona fides, his rock solid commitment to Israel isn't in question. And J.D. Vance, because he's Trump's vice president, gets a lot of grace and a lot of leeway. Okay, and I haven't seen anything negative that J.D. has said about Israel. I really haven't. So I'm not implying that it's a problem, but I'm saying that people have questions, and the fact that he's not speaking out against Tucker Carlson is a problem. So the fact that J.D. Vance was here working on these issues, working closely with Netanyahu, and dealing with these issues was a good thing. I want to see the vice president hear more. I want him to go, I'd like to have him on the Rosenberg Report. We're going to work on that to talk about his focus and his commitment to Israel and expanding peace in this region. Okay, now I want to show you, because of all that, I want to show you some clips from the press conference between Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Vice President at their press conference right here in Jerusalem. Take a look.
Well, I want to put it very clearly. 1 week they say that Israel controls the United States. A week later they say the United States controls Israel. This is hogwash. We have a partnership, an alliance of partners who share common values, common goals. We can have discussions, we can have disagreements here and there, but on the whole, I have to say that in the past year we've had agreement, not only on goals, but how to reach them. And I think we're pursuing them successfully. We've been able to do two things. Put the knife at Hamas's throat. That was the military effort guided by Israel. And the other effort was to isolate Hamas in the Arab and Muslim world, which I think the president did brilliantly with his team. So those two things produced the hostages. Nobody believed we'd get them out.
Mr. Prime Minister, whether you allow Turkey
on the
to
question of the terms, I think let me quote the Vice President from yesterday. He said that I have very strong opinions on that, and he also said we have to do it with Israel will be obviously decide together who does that. So I have very strong opinions about that. You want to guess what they are?
Vice President, can you comment on what you've done in direction Israel's decisions?
I want to address that. So, look, we don't want a vassal state, and that's not what Israel is. We don't want a client state, and that's not what Israel is. We want a partnership. We want an ally here. And the president believes very strongly that if Israel honestly, with our Gulf Arab allies, can play a very positive leadership role in this region, to where, frankly, the United States can care less about the Middle East because our allies in the region are giving up and taking control and taking ownership of their area of the world. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have interests here. That doesn't mean we don't care about what happens here. But we actually see this as an opportunity to build on the Abraham Accords. I think this Gaza deal is a critical piece of unlocking the Abraham Accords. But what it could allow is an alliance structure in the Middle East that perseveres, that endures, and that allows the good people in this region of the world to step up and take ownership of their own backyard. That's in the United States' best interest. I happen to think that it's in Israel's best interest too.
Netanyahu makes a couple of interesting and important points, right? He says 1 week the media and Israel's critics are saying that Israel controls the United States. The next week they're saying that the U.S. controls Israel. And all of it's hogwash. Bibi's right about that. Now, Bibi walked through several of the goals that the U.S. and Israel have done together. They're pretty impressive. Israel has put a knife to the throat of Hamas militarily. Good. Trump has isolated Hamas internationally, especially in the Arab Muslim world. Trump did this brilliantly. This is very good. Another goal, get all the hostages out of Gaza, all the live hostages, they are out. No one thought this was possible. This remains miraculous. We're still getting a few more of the deceased hostage bodies out. We need that to happen, and it isn't happening as fast enough, but it's still moving in the right direction. Now, regarding Turkey, it's interesting. You saw Bibi Netanyahu say, he really quotes the vice president saying that Netanyahu has very strong opinions about this, but they're going to work together with the United States on this and all these other matters. Look, there is no way on earth that Bibi Netanyahu or any Israeli wants to see Turkish troops in Gaza. Turkey hosts Hamas terrorists in Turkey. Turkey's been basically a supporter of Hamas politically and in other ways, and President Erdogan is one of the most hostile and bellicose Muslim leaders in the world right now, threatening to take Turkish troops and invade Israel. So this is a red line for Israel. Bibi was right to point it out, and God bless him. Now, Vice President Vance's points. Vance is right, and I'm glad he said it. The United States doesn't want a vassal state. We want a partner, and that's what we have in Israel. Amen. I love this quote from Vance. If Israel and our Gulf Arab neighbors work closely and well together, then the U.S. can care less about not I'm going to care less, but they can care less about what happens in the Middle East because our allies in the region will be taking ownership of their area of the world. Vance is absolutely right about that, and it goes to this basic point that Vance has, which is he doesn't want to be investing so much time, money, American time, money, military effort in the Middle East or in the Ukraine, European theater. He wants to focus on Asia because he's worried about communist China and the threat to Taiwan, and he's right to worry about that. So I think he makes a good point, and he emphasizes, yeah, the United States has interests in the Middle East. We care about the Middle East, but this is an opportunity to get Israel and the modern Arab Muslim world to work together to build on the Abraham Accords and have the United States be less involved in the epicenter. And the Gaza deal is a critical piece in all of this. He's absolutely right about that.
You say that the ceasefire isn't on the verge of collapse, but why is it that the president sent Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, now yourself, and then Secretary of State Marco Rubio to Israel this week, if that's not the case? And if I could, you said that there were joint agreements between the two of you today. Could you please explain what those were?
Well, to answer your question, look, this thing takes monitoring, and it's going to take a lot of work. I was in the CMCC, which we opened up yesterday. A lot of our Israeli friends working together with a lot of Americans to actually mediate this entire ceasefire process, to get some of the critical infrastructure off the ground, from the international security force to some of the reconstruction of Gaza. It's not easy. I never said it was easy, but what I am is optimistic that the ceasefire is going to hold and that we can actually build a better future in the entire Middle East. But that requires some work. So it's not about monitoring in the sense of, you monitor a toddler. It's about monitoring in the sense that there's a lot of work, a lot of good people who are doing that work, and it's important for the principals of the administration to keep on ensuring that our people are doing what we need them to do.
Vance is right. There are a lot of complicated details. These are not easy. I'm glad that he's optimistic, but we have had firefights in Gaza. We've had several Israelis, soldiers killed, others wounded in Gaza. So it's a very fragile situation right now, and we'll see. Vance noted that, of course, there are many American military and diplomatic experts on the ground right now here in Israel working with their Israeli counterparts to make all this work. That's good. More needs to happen. Let's go back to this press conference one more time.
America has an interest in a strong Israel, as you just heard from the Vice President, and Israel has an interest in a strong America. America has other interests in this region. Where we can be flexible to accommodate that, that's good, because a strong America is in our interest. And equally, as you just heard the Vice President say again, a strong Israel serves America's interest in stabilizing this very unstable region. And you can't stabilize it without a strong Israel. So we make the decisions for the security of Israel, but we make common decisions for the region, which I think can serve us both. And that's what we discussed today. We discussed this idea of the day after. Remember, everybody said you don't have a day after, you don't have a day after. We're just creating an unbelievable day after with a completely new vision of how to have the civil government, how to have the security there. Who could provide that security there? Again, with Israel taking care of overall security always. And we discussed that, and I think we have some very, very good ideas how to proceed. It's not going to be easy, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, there's a plan and an infrastructure here where nothing existed even a week and a day ago. That's going to require a lot of work. It requires a lot of ingenuity. But again, I just, having seen what's already been built in just the past 7 days, I think that we're on an incredible pathway here to do something that has never been done. And I think you've heard Steve Witkoff say this, you've heard the president, I believe, say this, that if we do this the right way, it could create a model, I think, that could lead to other peace agreements all over the world, because it shows what's possible when you're willing to think outside the box and actually put some elbow grease to get it done.
All right, that's important too. Again, we're going to get to the big controversial stuff in just a moment, but Netanyahu is underscoring that Israel wants a strong America. America wants a strong Israel. The U.S. has lots of interest in the Middle East, and it's good and important that Israel be flexible to help the U.S. achieve American interests. And Israel and the United States need to work closely together to stabilize this volatile region. And I love the point that he's saying that Netanyahu is saying that he's working with the vice president and President Trump and the entire American team on an unbelievable day after plan with a completely new vision. Good. Now, the Vice President Vance points. Let's take a look at those real quickly. Vance is underscoring that a lot of infrastructure to execute the peace process has been built in just the early days. That's good. He notes that the president and his team are working to create a model for peacemaking that can be replicated around the world by showing what's possible when you think outside the box. Right now, as war ends, we pray, right? We think that's happening. Many Christians are asking, so what do we do now? How can we continue to bless Israel, especially as the nation begins to rebuild? Well, Scripture gives us the answer in Genesis 12:3. I will bless those who bless Israel. And today, that calling matters more than ever. After years of hardship, Israel is entering a season of renewal. Families are rebuilding, small businesses are reopening, and communities from the Galilee to the Negev are coming back to life. And that's where Artsa comes in. Artsa is a beautiful subscription box that brings the Holy Land straight into your home, filled with handmade foods, crafts, and treasures created by small family artisans all across Israel. Each item tells a story of faith, beauty, and restoration. By subscribing, you're not only receiving something meaningful, you're directly blessing the people of Israel and helping their communities thrive again. This Christmas, bless Israel in a tangible way. Visit artsabox.com and use my code RR15 for 15% off. Lynn and I love Artsa, and I know you will too. Bless Israel. Experience the land. Be part of its renewal with Artsa. Okay, now I want to show you a few key moments from the brief press availability with Prime Minister Netanyahu and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And then I have to show you the most controversial moments of the week.
Secretary Rubio, Marco, welcome again to Jerusalem. We've had incredible visits, first by President Trump in the Knesset, something that will be etched in our history. We had the Vice President yesterday, we had you today. This is a circle of trust and partnership. You've been an extraordinary friend of Israel, and now we face days of destiny. We want to advance peace. We still have security challenges, but I think that we can work together, and by working together, both address the challenges and seize the opportunities. And plenty of both. And welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you.
You, friend.
Thank you for having us. And again, we're back here with just a few. Well, that's just a little bit over a week after a very historic day where President Trump's work with our partners led to this extraordinary breakthrough. Now we have more work ahead of us, but we feel very positive about it. We're making good progress. It's amazing that in just 7 or 8 days, the kinds of things and systems that have been set up. No one's under any illusions. We've already done the impossible once, and we intend to keep doing that if we can. We have good partners that we're working on. But we feel confident and positive about the progress that's being made. We're clear-eyed about the challenges, too. But the President has made this a top priority, I think, as evidenced by the fact that both Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were here for much of the week, and I spent time with them, and the Vice President just left. We crossed on the way. And then I'm here now today because this is a priority. It's a very important achievement, but there's more work to be done and bigger achievements that lie ahead. And so we're here to work on that, and we feel very positive and confident that we're going to get there despite substantial obstacles. We're going to get there.
So Netanyahu says there is a circle of trust and a partnership between the United States and Israel. Good. He says we now face the days of destiny, a little flowery, but still good. And Rubio responds, look, these are historic visits of all these senior administration officials, and lots of progress, just the early days. He's talking about there's no illusions, there's lots of challenges ahead. But Rubio is making the point that we've already done the impossible, and we're feeling very confident, very optimistic. You heard that. It's all good. But it's very interesting that they didn't take questions, right? They both made statements. They didn't take questions. It wasn't a press conference. It was a press availability, meaning just say what you want to say and then don't take questions. Why? Because trouble was brewing all over Jerusalem. Look, there was a lot of things going on this past week that were poised to just blow up this whole regional situation. First, it's Turkey's role and Qatar's. We talked about that a moment ago. But then was this gambit by members of parliament, members of the Knesset, to expand Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. Now, I want you to know, I support Israel's expansion of sovereignty over the biblical heartland, Judea and Samaria. The question is timing, okay? Because what happened was, of this past week, is there was a bill that passed its first reading, meaning the first of three rounds that you have to assess and vote on and then move the bill forward in the Knesset. And at its first reading in the Foreign and Defense Committee level, the Knesset voted to annex large swaths of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, into Israel. But they did it right while the vice president was visiting Israel, right in the early days of President Trump and his team trying to expand peace, bring quiet to Gaza, and expand the Abraham Accords to Saudi Arabia and elsewhere. And Vance reacted. I mean, he reacted. I'm going to show you the clip, but just I want you to watch for the lines. He called it a stupid political stunt. He said, I personally take some insult to it. And he added that the West Bank is not going to be annexed by Israel. And he adds, if people want to take a symbolic vote, fine, they can do that, but we certainly weren't happy about it. That's the Vice President of the United States being put in a very awkward situation. Take a look.
West Bank, sorry,
Yeah, go ahead. We'll do, yeah.
The West Bank vote yesterday that took place while you were in the country.
Oh, yeah, that was weird. That was weird. I was sort of confused by that. Now, I actually asked somebody about it, and they told me that it was a symbolic vote, some symbolic vote to recognize or a symbolic vote to annex the West Bank. I mean, what I would say to that is when I asked about it, somebody told me that it was a political stunt, that it had no practical significance. It was purely symbolic. I mean, look, if it was a political stunt, it was a very stupid political stunt, and I personally take some insult to it. The West Bank is not going to be annexed by Israel. The policy of the Trump administration is that the West Bank will not be annexed by Israel. That will continue to be our policy. And if people want to take symbolic votes, they can do that. But we certainly weren't happy about it. Thank you.
Look, the Bible says in the book of Ecclesiastes, there's a time and a place for everything. This is not the time to provoke President Trump or Vice President Vance. It's unbelievable that members of parliament are trying, here in Israel, are trying to expand Israeli sovereignty now. We're just trying to end a war. We're trying to expand peace in the region. Look at what, I mean, Trump went further than Vance. He said, it won't happen. It won't happen. There's a whole idea of annexation of the West Bank. It won't happen because I gave my word to the Arab countries. And you can't do that now, he said. We've had great Arab support to this peace plan. It won't happen because I gave my word to the Arab countries. It will not happen. Israel would lose all of its support from the United States if that happened. Those are direct quotes from the President of the United States. And yet that is the approach that these members of parliament decided to take here in the Knesset in the midst of the Vance visit and the Rubio visit. But wait, there was more trouble in Jerusalem. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich said this, unbelievable, just listen to this. If Saudi Arabia tells us normalization in exchange for a Palestinian state, friends, then I say no thank you. Keep riding camels in the desert in Saudi Arabia, and we will continue to develop with the economy, society, and a state and the great things that we know how to do. Whoa, whoa. All right. You have to understand that Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, is from one of the most far-right wing parties in Israel. He's part of the Israeli, the Netanyahu government because Netanyahu absolutely needs him to keep a majority. But Smotrich, along with his colleague, Itamar Ben-Gvir of another super far-right political party, these guys are not healthy. These are not normal, regular Israeli political partners. These guys are, I mean, they're a little crazy. Okay, I've covered them before. I've talked about them before. Now, their goal of ultimately annexing and bringing into Israeli sovereignty all of Judea and Samaria, okay, we all, almost every Israeli supports that goal, certainly on the center to the center right. Obviously, the left doesn't believe it. But to do that now is wrong. Smotrich is pushing a bill to annex 82% of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria right now. And then he goes off and takes this shot at the Saudis that, just go ride your camels? Like, this is unbelievably bad. In fact, there are reports, though I can't confirm them, but a major Israeli leader, Avigdor Lieberman, said that that Netanyahu was screaming at that Smotrich in a private meeting in the Prime Minister's office so loud that people in other offices could hear it, and they were worried the Prime Minister was going to, like have a stroke or something. That's how angry, reportedly, Netanyahu is. And I believe that in principle. I can't confirm that specific anecdote. But this idea that Smotrich is dissing the Saudis right at the moment where the Saudis are moving again towards us to make Israel, this is a disaster. And as you might expect, Saudi officials began signaling to reporters that they might not be interested anymore in pursuing an historic peace and normalization deal with Netanyahu and his government in its current form. Wow, this is the challenge that we face right now. I'm so glad that President Trump came. I'm so glad that he got all of our live hostages out. I'm glad that the bodies of our hostages are coming back. It's not fast enough, but it's still going in the right direction. And I'm glad that Vice President came and Secretary of State Rubio and the others. Look, this is good, and the U.S.-Israel relationship is good, but Netanyahu has got to keep a tight rein on his own team, on his own government, because what's just happened over the past week is not good. It's not good for Israel. We're trying to finish a war. We're trying to expand the circle of peace. And if Netanyahu allows the I'm not talking about right-wingers. Most Israelis are right-wing. But the far right-wing lunatics in his government, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, they are a problem, and Netanyahu has to deal with them. So be praying for Israel, praying for our neighbors, praying for Netanyahu to have wisdom how to handle his own leadership of his own team at this critical moment. From Jerusalem, this is Joel Rosenberg with a YouTube exclusive for the Rosenberg Report.